Hi, this is Tanya Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. If you haven't already, please subscribe to PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any content there either. Today, I'm joined by Mike Newton, PartsVu's co-founder. I live in the Midwest, and I'm all too well aware that fall is not far around the corner. Of course, for many of us, this means it's not long before we'll have to store our boats for the season. So we wanted to address the topic of winterization. A lot of people create really fairly complicated winterization procedures. However, basic winterization is quite simple. But there are other steps PartsVu recommends, so we wanted to break this all down for you. Thanks so much for being here, Mike.
Hi, Tanya. Well, I tell you, it's great to be here. It's always great to be with you. And, while we're talking about winterization, I got to tell you, right now in Florida, it's still pretty hot. I think it's like 90, 92 today. It felt like 104 the other day. So it's still pretty warm. But we know for the folks that may be in Minnesota and Wisconsin that are joining us that, soon it's hard to believe that this season has just flown by. And I realize as you get older, they do. I turned 40 in August. And it feels like this one in particular is just like zoomed,
I know.
Anyway, but super excited about the conversation and happy to be here.
No, yeah. As you know, I'm in the Midwest and, it's still warm here, but there's moments you can start to feel the chill in the air and it's, it's coming.
It's coming. It's real, no doubt, so, and we're excited about it at PartsVu too. We're getting ready for it and, thinking about all the different content and things like that we're going to have to be able to show for it. So it should be good. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So we all talk about winterization, but really we're talking about two different things, right? Protecting your boat and engine from freezing temperatures and long-term storage. I mean, do you agree that they're really two different things?
Yeah, they absolutely are. I mean, and you go back to the Florida conversation, right? I mean, we have snowbirds here that will leave their boat for the summer months, excuse me. And go back up north for the summer. And, obviously they're not prepping for the freeze, but their boat's going to be sitting for months and months, several months. And so they have to be ready for that. Right. So it definitely is, there are two different things between winterization and storage, but both have to be heavily considered. I mean, the Florida storage person or person that's going to be storing their boat in a winter climate or a warmer climate for a few months, that's going to be fuel stabilizer, flushing the engine, changing out gear lube, and then fogging. Yeah. Versus your true winter storage, which is really getting into fighting against those freezing temperatures. So definitely big issues certainly with sterndrives, inboards, the potential to crack the engine block, and with outboards, the water expanding and freezing the lower units. So yes, two definitely very different things there. And lots of theories out there around, what period of time makes sense for me to consider, long-term storage or just storing my boat. And, as in all things with maintaining whatever it may be, there's lots of different theories and opinions out there. Some guys will say that, hey, you can go 2 or 3 months. Others say, 2 or 3 weeks, right? We fall somewhere kind of in the middle. We're more around a month or so. It's where we want to say, hey, you want to consider it. And then a lot of guys are going to use fuel stabilizers and fuel additives year round. They're going to use them at every fill up. And if you talk to Yamaha and Mercury, some of the OEMs, they certainly would recommend that. I mean, obviously they believe that the products they have for this will help to keep their engines running at peak performance. And additives like Ring Free, from Mercury, additives like Quick Clean, helping keep carbon deposits down. So really a lot of different theories there. But I think to answer your question and to really think about it, if you're going to be storing your engine for a month or more, I think you really want to consider taking the steps necessary for storage.
No, that makes all the sense in the world. And I think to a degree, it kind of depends on the gas you're using or the fuel you're using, right? I mean, if have to use fuel with more ethanol in it, you probably need to think about the shorter end of that spectrum, right?
Yeah, most definitely. That's a huge part of it. And, in a perfect world, you're going to use, Rec 90 fuel, right? ethanol-free fuel. But it's sometimes not possible, and sometimes ethanol 10's all you have. I think that the one thing to consider is that whatever fuel you choose, try to stick with it. Try to run that same fuel through the engine as much as possible. If you change your fuel type, you do run into some challenges, some issues there. As an example, Rec 90 or ethanol-free fuel is going to use an octane enhancer to produce a cleaner exhaust for the environment. However, if you combine those enhancers with ethanol, so you use the Rec 90 one fill up, then you move to ethanol for the next fill up. If you combine that octane enhancer with ethanol fuel, you risk getting gummy residue that may cause clogged fuel filters, other performance issues. So essentially, it's ideal not to mix ethanol-free gasoline with other types and vice versa. Really, you could risk having to, clean your fuel tank, and fuel lines to ensure optimal performance.
Yeah.
So it's best to really consider that. And then also worth noting that, older engines should stay away from ethanol fuel. They just really weren't built to handle it. The fuel lines can't take the water in the fuel, in ethanol fuels that can come from that, and it can evaporate them, disintegrate them. We do see, though, most modern engines, they definitely were built with ethanol fuel in mind. I mean, it's just so prevalent and out there in the world. They had to, really, no other much choice. And so, even with those engines, when it comes to storage, you want to take, proper precaution. Mostly it comes down to the fact that, ethanol contains ethyl alcohol, which, can cause varnishing, which is a residue that's going to clog your fuel system components. Ethanol can also, as we mentioned, break down the rubber and other materials in your fuel lines. Basically that ethyl part of the ethyl alcohol attracts water.
Yeah.
And, that's what's going to lead could also lead to phase separation as well. And so that's where, the gasoline and ethanol separate. And really the octane level at that point in time of your gasoline drops. Right. And that's going to increase the volume of water in the fuel tank. So really that's, you're trying to stay away from the water. It's not good at any level. It can definitely cause some serious damage. So again, treating your fuel with a quality fuel stabilizer, thinking about using consistent fuel, definitely, is the way to go. So the question then is, well, what do I use, right? I mean, there's so much fuel stabilizer that's out there. We at PartsVu, we have a wide range of it. We certainly believe in our OEMs. So Yamaha and Mercury both have an excellent product. Really it comes down to the differences mostly are going to be in the ratios that you use with these products. Also just how long they may ultimately stabilize, your fuel.
Right. And Suzuki has a fuel additive as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's a great point. And we just they do as well. CRC, the non-OEM brand CRC, Starbright, Gold Eagle from the Gold Eagle makes a Stay-Bil 360 marine product that's great. Most all of them are going to consider and cover you. They're going to help to dissolve gum and varnish in your fuel system. They're going to offer corrosion inhibitor additives that will help protect against corrosion in your carburetor and fuel systems. Most of them are going to prevent, icing and gas line freeze, things like this. So they're all really, for the most part, very similar in what they do. It's just the main thing is the ratios and how long ultimately they will, stabilize, your fuel. Yeah. So.
I think it's important for people to realize too that once your gas separates, I mean, no additive, you can't put it back together. It's done. Tank has to be emptied and gotten rid of, really, right?
Absolutely. And that's a huge expense, right? I mean, so for the cost of, I think a quart of Yamaha fuel stabilizer was like $9, so So for the cost of that to take care of it, versus risking, like we're talking about this water in your fuel system and your fuel tank, yeah, absolutely. It makes all the sense in the world to take the extra time to make sure that's considered for sure. So.
And you're also going to want to check and change out fuel water separators, right, just to prevent water, help minimize or eliminate the water in the gas, right?
Most definitely. Fuel water separating filters, absolutely. Again, very easy, very quick to do. Right there, all external to the engine, so a no-brainer. And it's worth it to say also, to go back on the fuel stabilizer part, that you want to add this in at the last fill up prior to storage. If you're only going to use the fuel stabilizer for storage purposes, make sure you add it at the last fill up, not necessarily just pour it in your tank, right? And then you're done, because you want it to run through the system components of your engine and also through your fuel tank, right, itself, to stabilize all that fuel already in there, to get into your engine, get mixed in. So just make sure you do add it in at the last fill up, and then go run your boat, go use your boat. So absolutely.
Good. So are there other steps, that you need to take before a boat can be stored safely?
Yeah, certainly. It can, depending on the size of the vessel, get really, really in depth. But for most folks, really, it's a great time to do a 100-hour service. Mm-hmm. At minimum, you want to get into doing oil change and a gear lube change. But if you're going to knock out a 100-hour service at that point in time, you're going to be ready to rock in the spring. Your boat's going to go to bed feeling healthy and feeling good. And so, it makes sense. 100-hour service is going to be things like we mentioned: oil change, gear lube, primary fuel filter, fuel water separating filter, spark plugs, just basic maintenance on your engine. And even though you may not be at 100 hours, if the boat's going to go and sit for a long period of time, it's good to have fresh oil, good to have fresh gear lube, good to have the fresh filter sitting in there for storage. So just again, to be ready for the boat to come out of storage and ready to go for the spring, it makes a whole lot of sense. And to get a little more in depth on that, especially with the lower unit gear lube, right? That makes tons of sense to look at that one, because you want to ensure there's no water in the gear lube. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if there is any water there, you two things, right? Rusty bearings over a period of time, and then in colder climates, the water could freeze, expand, and potentially crack the lower unit. So definitely not something you want to get into. Quick and easy to do, super easy. And again, just a great preventative measure. And then other things, flushing the engine, and if you're in a saltwater environment, it's really great to consider using like a salt remover during that process. So like salt, I think it's Salt Off from Starbright, Salt Terminator from CRC, great products for that. Just to make sure you're removing those potentially very harmful salt deposits, from the engine. And giving it a good flush again before putting it away for storage. And then one to consider is fogging the engine as well. That's going to be a pretty simple process. You basically just need to get access to the air intake on the engine. And so depending on if it's a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke engine, that may be as simple as removing a hose or a sensor, or you may have to pull the intake airbox off. But usually a pretty straightforward process, and you're really protecting the internal, fuel components of the engine, when you do that. And it's one quick note on fogging. Worth noting that you may have to raise the RPM on the engine during that fogging process to like nothing significant, 1,000, 1,200 RPM, just to kind of keep it chugging along before it dies out. And so because of that, though, it's great to use earmuffs on the lower unit versus using the flushing, hookup on around the engine block. That way you can ensure that the impeller is staying nice and lubricated and wet and cool, and just again ensuring the safety, of the engine. And I'd say the last component there, to consider. So we've done 100-hour service, flushing, fogging, would be disconnecting the battery. And if possible, if you can do it, put it on a trickle charger and let it stay happy during storage as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you mentioned changing the gear lube. performing 100-hour service is full 100-hour service is great, but certainly changing the gear lube and changing the engine oil is as well. I mean, there's much less likelihood that there's going to be water in there, but if there is, you have a problem, so it's a good time to diagnose and not be surprised in the spring.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, fully agree. I mean, you're going to learn, so much about your engine by doing that. And another great thing to do is send the oil sample off at that point in time. Grab it from, you're running after the season, send it out, get it tested. Blackstone Labs is great for that.
That's who we work with. Which is
exactly. And again, you're just learning more about the internal health of your engine. And, engines these days, I mean, man, they can run for thousands of hours, so this little bit of preventative maintenance that takes, a couple of hours really when it comes down to it can save you a lot of money, a lot of time, and just give you great, really almost guaranteed longevity, to your engine. So. Yeah,
those Blackstone Lab Analyses they're interesting. I mean, it's not a very expensive thing to do, and it tells you a lot about what's going on in the engine. So
tons. I mean, we've run some sample tests, and I mean, it's incredible what you get back, the level of detail. Yeah. And these guys are the real deal. I mean, they're working in aviation, they're working in automotive. So they are definitely well versed at what they're doing and so you know what they're looking at, and you get a lot of good detailed information back.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about the winterizing part of winterization. What are we really talking about here?
I think basically putting a big, nice warm blanket over your engine, sticking a little heater in there, and maybe a nice little fire off to the side and calling it good. But no, I mean, seriously, it's really, again, it's just protecting from those freezing temperatures, any water that's in the engine or in your boat systems, from freezing. Certainly, again, expansion from the water freezing, not good. It's going to break really whatever's in its way. And then one thing for outboards, and is you don't want to store the boat with the engine trimmed up really or partially up, right? We've seen that water can gather in the prop hub and then expand, if it freezes and cause a lot of unwanted damage. So, trying to work that in and out, so trim your engine up and down, really trying to get that worked out, and then ultimately storing the engine with the engine trimmed down and nice and pointed, straight ahead rather than any kind of tilt port or starboard. Just again, trying to prevent any water accumulation anywhere and prevent freezing. And then really, I think probably the major component of this is going to be for stern drive and true inboard owners, right? Because those guys have to worry about, cracking the engine block. And so, with that, you're going to have to do some antifreeze action, right? And so, a lot of, boat yards may look at avoiding this step of antifreeze by opening up the petcocks in the block and then kind of blowing compressed air through the raw water cooling system. But there may be some risk there. Anything left over, water left over, remaining in the block could cause a crack. So really antifreeze, we believe, and I think you talked to a lot of mechanics out there that work on inboards and stern drives believe that antifreeze is the way to go as far as a safe winterizing plan. If you have a stern drive, there's tons of do-it-yourself kits out there. You basically need a water hose, a faucet, and earmuffs, and you're good. For inboards, you do have a little more involved. Maybe you get like a 5-gallon bucket and then enough antifreeze to run through your engine components. Typically around 2 gallons will do the trick. But really, as far as winterization goes, for the true stern drive and inboards, it's adding antifreeze. And just to be clear, you do not need to add antifreeze to an outboard. Yeah. That is not something that you have to worry about. I've seen a lot of inquiries about that online and through some of our networks, and just nothing you have to worry about. It's mostly for your stern drive and inboard owners. Yeah. So.
And to my knowledge, you specifically don't want to add antifreeze to an outboard, correct?
Probably a good idea to stay away. But people that are new. We picked up the boating had a great year in boating. We picked up so many new boat owners over the last couple of years, and so people, who knows? People sometimes just don't know which direction to go. Yeah. Stay away from the antifreeze for inboards,
or for outboards.
For stern drive. Yeah. I'm sorry. Excuse me. For outboards. Right. Sorry. But for stern drive and inboard, most definitely.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the best way to store your boat's batteries over the winter. Especially, I mean, some of these boats, I mean, the number of batteries on boats are becoming incredible. So you don't want to just trash your batteries, right? I mean, it's a lot of money.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, number of batteries and how much they each cost. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of things going on there. But yeah, remove the battery, right? I mean, store that battery in a location that's going to stay above freezing. And hopefully, if possible, put it onto a trickle charger. And then, something simple, just keep it away from really any, cold contact. So don't store it directly on the floor of your garage, because the cold's just going to zap the battery, maybe at least raise it off the ground or use a 2x4 as a simple method of getting around that. Just something to keep it up off the ground. And then again, just don't leave it connected. That's just going to be a recipe for a dead battery in the spring. So if at all possible, try and disconnect it and I'm not trying to disconnect it, try and hook it up to a trickle charger and give it a good spray of a corrosion inhibitor on the terminals and just to give some good protection over the winter as well.
Absolutely.
Or any kind of storage period.
Yeah. If you leave your batteries connected, I mean, your boat systems are going to pull from those batteries all winter long until they're all dead, and then they'll stop pulling. But, but then that's another problem entirely.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you break the boat out and oh boy, you get to go back. Yeah. So,
cleaning and covering your boat before storage is a good idea too, right?
No brainer. Absolutely. Most definitely. It's really about also too, I mean, certainly, giving the boat a thorough clean, removing dirt and debris, things like that, but also just making sure you empty your boat systems. So, empty your freshwater tanks, empty your holding tanks, make sure, again, nothing's in there that can freeze. Just trying to really prevent against that. And also you're trying to, you're trying to prevent any kind of trapped moisture also within the boat itself. So there's great like canvas and fabric protectors, vinyl protectants. We sell tons of that stuff on PartsVu, and then moisture absorbers as well are great. Like Damp Rid, is excellent for that. If you're gonna if you have a wake boat or a ski boat, you're going to put a cover over the boat and store it. Put a little, can of moisture absorber in there as well, and let it do its thing. And I say you probably want to go back to that maybe after a couple of weeks or a month, and just keep monitoring that and change it out. I've owned several boats in my life, and you'd be amazed at the amount of water that it gets accumulated. I mean, you can just literally go and dump this bucket out. From water. It's tremendous. And so it's just it's helping to fight against that mold and mildew that can form in there over a period of time, and will save you a lot of heartache, and clean up, once you break it out again in the spring. And as far as your covering your boat goes, you can go as far as shrink wrapping the boat. And I've seen we see that even down here in Florida, guys leave for several months. They want the best in protection. They're going to shrink wrap the boat. Definitely see that in the Northeast and Midwest. If not that, you definitely want to cover, for they can withstand any kind of weight from snow and ice. Because the boat's going to be sitting outside. If it's going to be sitting outside, definitely want to keep, cover that can withstand the weight of that. And I think I've heard, Tanya, that you may have a pretty good story about why it's important to cover your boat. So.
Well, this leads into just, protecting your boat from critter. I mean, especially in the Midwest, Northeast, cold weather climates. I mean, the animals are trying to find cozy places to ride out the winter too, right? I mean, and commonly in the Midwest, at least speaking for the Midwest where I currently am and grew up my whole life, a lot of people store their boats in old chicken barns or just old barns, that aren't being used for livestock and things anymore. Which, kind of tend to be more prone to, raccoons and all kinds of things getting in just because it's a barn, my dad stored his boat in an old barn for years with a storage operation, near where they live. Raccoons got in a few years ago and just tore the ever loving heck out of all the upholstery had to be replaced. And I mean, it was thousands of dollars. I mean, it's, all that upholstery is expensive. So, I mean, one of the things you can do is just throw mothballs, obviously cover it as best as you can, but mothballs will help keep out, critters to an extent. Although I'm convinced raccoons are smart and they don't care about the mothballs, but they're just like, they're so smart. They're like mothballs. Oh yeah, nice try, people. But
what is that going to do? Right? That's right. But you're right, though. I mean, man, the expense there. I mean, vinyl is the upholstery is not cheap.
No.
And so anything you can do to protect that, absolutely, it makes sense. So good lesson to learn.
What kinds of things? I'm sure you down in Florida, you in the South, you get little critters hopping in. But I mean,
oh man,
yeah.
I mean, I've heard of rats and snakes and everything finding their way into any crevice or corner. I mean, through, bilge intakes and just like crazy stuff, just where you wouldn't even think to find.
Oh my God.
But most definitely. So, in the best of worlds, you go up into the Midwest and you go to the Northeast and you boat all summer long and you trailer that boat down to Florida and you boat all winter long and you just eliminate the risk of any of this happening.
Exactly.
Constantly are using your boat and which it'll be happy and the best of both worlds. But but if you're reality is you're probably gonna have to think about storage and winterization at some point. And so these are just definitely some good things to consider. And it's not complicated.
No, it's not.
It doesn't have to be anything more than a few hours spent doing this. And it's just good preventative maintenance and preventative measures to help ensure that you enjoy your boating and your boat for a long time to come. So
absolutely. Yes. I think this will be super helpful to people. In PartsVu, we have some other tools to help people just with winterization. We have guides for Yamaha, Mercury, and Suzuki on the outboard side, as well as Mercury sterndrive. So I've included those links in the show notes. So thanks for being here, Mike.
Great.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, Tanya,
super fun.
Really appreciate everything, and always great to talk to you. And stay warm this winter. And we're trying to bring you down south.
I know.
At some point we'll get you down here. But anyway, thanks so much, Tanya. Great chat. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Are you in a dock war with your boating neighbor for the cleanest boat? Check out our marine soaps, polishes, waxes, and more at PartsVu.com. And for free shipping, use the coupon code PVTalksShine, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Xchange. And a big thanks to Mind for performing the original music featured within this podcast.